Everybody, welcome to the Legacy Wealth Show. I got a good buddy of mine, Ben Azadi here, who is a certified health coach and three-time best-selling author and owner of Keto Camp. So I know we talk a lot about making money and keeping money and getting your money working for you and building legacy wealth. But today we're going to be talking about legacy health and how to enjoy that for a long time. So imagine what you've accomplished in business already for the past 5-10 years, and what that can turn out to be, for over the next 30, 40, 50 years of just working smart and building your business that way. So Ben, excited to have you on, brother. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, brother Tim, I'm excited to be here with you and talk about legacy health. So thank you so much for having me.
I love it. And so Ben and I met last year at a conference we were both speaking at, and you had some awesome things to say. I was so inspired that I reached out to you, and I've actually had you consulting with me on a nutritional basis with me and my family, and putting a lot of really cool stuff in place to have the longevity, right? Not only the we want quantity and we want quality, I guess, in this stuff. And it's been amazing. And I've had higher energy levels, trimmed down quite a bit, and excited to share some of this information with some of the other entrepreneurs. So cool, man. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about how you got into the health space, what inspired you to get in the health space, and a little bit of your track record and your background, and kind of what got you to starting up Keto Camp.
Yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I gained an interest for the health space, and that came from a transformation on myself. I actually was obese for 24 years of my life. Growing up, my mom, she was the manager of KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Wow.
So immigrant from Iran, my parents came in the 70s, had my sister and myself, and my mom got a job, and she worked 3 jobs actually, Walgreens and KFC, and she was doing the best she can. So she brought me Kentucky Fried Chicken every night, the leftovers that were left in the kitchen to feed the family. And I ate that, and I played a lot of video games, and I did drugs, and I even sold drugs in high school. I was a bad kid. And it showed with my physical appearance. I was obese, 80 pounds overweight. Both actually, I was obese physically and mentally. I had just terrible mindset, no aspirations to do anything in this world, to not be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what that word meant back then.
Mm-hmm.
And my ex-girlfriend 10 years ago broke up with me. I was with her for 4 years, and I was just not going anywhere with my life. And she saw that, and she didn't want to be a part of that. So I hit rock bottom. I was working at a packing and shipping store, obese, 24 years old. I felt like I was 90, and I was miserable. I didn't know what to do with my life. I hated reading books. I didn't surround myself with the best people. And I was in this space where I just wanted to get out of it, Tim. And it was so bad that I was thinking of ways to actually kill myself. I was on Google looking for ways to kill myself. And I kept thinking about my mother, which stopped me from pursuing that. So I had to make a decision. I had to get out of this dark place that I was in. I was afraid to even be in a room by myself because of the thoughts that would come into my head.
Yeah.
So what I started to do was actually, you could see in the video, if you're watching the video, I started reading books. I opened up my first book, and it just opened up a brand new world to me. I came across amazing authors like Wayne Dyer and Bob Proctor, and just amazing people in the space who have been rock bottom and got out of it. And I used their stories to help get me out of where I was and place me into the zip code of greatness. So I took responsibility, and where it started with my health. I decided to work out and eat right for the first time in my life. And you fast forward from that point, Tim, and I lost 80 pounds. I went from 34% body fat down to 6% body fat. So I completely transformed my physical appearance, but more importantly, I gained a mental six-pack. And that's where it all started in the health space. I became a personal trainer, and it just turned into a lot of cool things.
I love that, man. That's a powerful story. And I you hear a lot of stories about people who hit rock bottom. And I think when you're going through it, it's hard to see outside of that, right? But what you don't realize is that rock bottom creates the perfect foundation for really building something that can be phenomenal and something great. So powerful story, man. And one of my biggest takeaways of that is, a lot of people get in the health space and they think it's just about working out and eating right and that kind of stuff, but they don't advance themselves psychologically. Like there's a whole psychological part of that, of not having a fat thought, not fat mindset, and still calling yourself fat and just saying I'm on a diet. That's different than saying, no, this is my lifestyle and I'm changing things. I'm a skinny type person, right? So talk a little bit about like the psychology that you go through when you're that you went through personally, and then the psychology that you go through when you're talking with entrepreneurs and clients of yours before you even get started, because you got to lay that foundation first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you touched upon that, because you're right. Nothing on the outside of us is ever going to either help us or hurt us. It's what's on the inside that counts. It's our inner size, which I call inner sizing is more important than exercising. So for myself, it actually took me about 2 years after I got the physical transformation to believe that I was actually a lean person. 2 years. Wow. I kept feeling like I was still that fat person, because you got to really I want to paint the picture. I was that kid growing up who was bullied, picked on. I didn't want to be outside. Living in Miami, I avoided outdoor activities. I wore T-shirts inside of swimming pools. I was made fun of for being fat. So I had that mindset. And that was my paradigm. That was my belief that I'm always going to be this fat guy. So even though I got the results physically, it took me 2 years to catch up mentally. And the books helped me. And Wayne Dyer said something in one of the books. He said, if other people are the cause for your problems, you would have to hire a psychiatrist for the world in order for you to get better. And it's so true. So I took responsibility, and that's what I talked about a lot in my lectures and with my clients. It all starts on the inside. Nothing external has any control over you. And when you understand that, it's so powerful, because our greatest power is the power to choose our thoughts. Nothing is good, nothing is bad, but thinking makes it so. And I've understand that through books and through experiences, and every opportunity or every obstacle that is in my life now, whether it is with health, a setback in business, when I have my eye on what I want to accomplish, those obstacles turn into opportunities. Therefore, I eliminate the myth of failure. It's actually, failure becomes a myth to me. So when you're somebody who's out there who wants to get healthier, right? And you're going to have setbacks. It's just a matter of time, but it's never really about the setback. It's about the get back. So something that I always talk about is, I could teach you everything about keto, everything about fasting, longevity, sleep. But if you don't have two things, none of that will matter. And those two things are love and gratitude. And that starts on the inside. So you got to love yourself first. You got to love other people, especially those who are bothering you, who have done bad things to you. You got to love them, because anything you send energy to, whether it's a thought or a word, it expands. So why not send love to those people so you get love back? It might not come from that person, but it'll come from somewhere. And that's just one of the laws of the universe. And then gratitude, what we appreciate appreciates. And I see that with you. You're posting photos of your family, of successes and victories, and you're getting more of that, Tim, because you're focusing your energy and your good vibes on what's working for you. And I think a lot of people do the opposite. They're complaining, they're blaming circumstances, and they're getting more of that. So that's such a huge shift for me. And that's what I instill in a lot of my clients.
No, man, that's powerful, powerful stuff. Love that you hit on that. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, how does 24 years of eating crappy food, not exercising, doing drugs, how does that impact you? How old are you now? You're 35, right? 36?
34.
34. So how does that impact you today? So doing that for 24 years, can you change your body quickly enough so that way it doesn't adversely affect your entire life? What does that timeline look like? And obviously you're a healthy guy now. We've had dinner together. I see what you eat. I know what you eat. Like we've been working together for several months just on my stuff too. And by doing that, can you reverse not your biological age, but like your cellular age? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And it's a great question. So we are born with a set of genes, and everybody believes that, hey, if it's in your genes, it's going to happen in your future, that your DNA is your destiny. I'm here to say that that's completely false. In fact, we have upwards of 95% control over the expression of those genes. So when I was the first 24 years of my life, I was expressing all the bad genes, my obesity gene, my diabetes gene, which my father had. And I turned off those genes. But you know what? I'm still working on it for myself. I turned on a gene called Raynaud's. I turned on a gene called Raynaud's disease. So I have Raynaud's, which is an autoimmune disease where I don't get a lot of blood flow to my fingers. So I'm working on turning off that gene. And I do that with the things that I'm incorporating. And it takes years, not months, to do this. That is a very important thing to understand. So if somebody listening has cancer in their family history, or diabetes or heart disease, which I'm sure almost probably 100% of those listening have one of those in their family tree, it does not mean that is in your future. You have control over the expression of those genes. It's called epigenetics. So I want that to really be dialed into your listeners, that they have control and their lifestyle is what determines it. So the genes that you're born with, you can't change. Those are the bullets that load the gun. But your lifestyle and the decisions you make determine whether or not you pull the trigger on those genes.
So how much of, I don't know if you have a statistic on this, but how much of it, of our health and lifestyle is determined by genetics versus our lifestyle and what we eat and how we exercise and how we live our life?
Yeah, well, according to Bruce Lipton, who is one of the world leaders in biological research and DNA research, he has a book called The Biology of Belief. He says less than 2% is actually determined by genes. All disease, he says less than 2%. And you know what? I'm inclined to agree with him. I think less than 5% is determined by your genes, and 95% is determined by us.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah, I mean, before they had processed food and cigarettes and all this other stuff, yeah, there were other dangers, I guess, in the world. Like you had to worry about, I don't know, getting in a duel or getting attacked by a bear, like stuff like that. So life expectancies still weren't like longer, but people weren't dying from actual like cancer, right? Like cancer was just developed, I don't know, like 100 years ago or something, right? So craziness. Through all these processed foods and breathing bad air and bathing in bad water and all these kinds of things that have kind of culminated and created all these different types of cancers. And so I remember I forget who the guy was, but I sat through a lecture, I don't know, almost 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago, and the guy was explaining. He's like, listen, your body, when it feels sick, it wants to throw up, or it wants to create a fever to eliminate whatever the disease or the bacteria is inside, or it wants to throw up the toxins that you ingested, or it does these things, and then they make medicine to stop us from doing those things. So now, although your body, which has the natural tendency to want to throw up all these toxins, all these bad things, now we're ingesting something that stops our body from doing that or reduces our fever. So now all that bad stuff is still in our bodies, and our body can't do anything other than really encapsulate it, turn it into a cancer, and then it turns into a cancer or a tumor or something along those lines. So it was pretty interesting the way that he explained that and kind of went through that whole, painted that picture, I guess, for us. So yeah, man, powerful stuff though.
Yeah, I want to just, I agree. We're suppressing natural capabilities that the body has, that our creator put inside of us, and we're suppressing it. We're not letting the body do its thing, which is to heal itself. The body has this innate wisdom that if we could just remove the interference, the body will heal itself. And that is what I teach. Remove the interference, let the body heal itself. Like you said, the last 100 years, there's been so much disease, and it's an epidemic. 1 out of 3 people get cancer in their lifetime, and in 10 years, it's going to be 1 out of 2 people. That's a disgusting stat. We're not dying, Tim. We're killing ourselves. It's just happening so slowly that it's not being classified as a suicide.
Yeah, that's insane. So tell me, what are some of these, all the toxins and stuff out in the world? Like, how can we eliminate that? How can we eliminate the interference that you're talking about?
Well, there's different levels of toxins. I'll start with the big boys, the ones that cause the most interference in the body. And those are going to be environmental toxins. So one of the big ones that I've seen are silver fillings, amalgam fillings, because 50% of the silver fillings it's mercury, and that vaporizes, it gets stored in the brain. And that brain, the hypothalamus pituitary, controls our entire endocrine system, all of our hormones. So if that's not working right, your organs are not working right, your hormones are not working right. So if somebody has silver fillings, it's an issue, and you don't want to just go and get them taken out. There's a process to it, and that's kind of what I teach. So that's one. Lead-based paint. So if you lived in a house that was older than 1978, chances are you've been breathing in lead-based paint. And mold in homes are also an issue. And those are big problems that you probably need to investigate. Something that's very simple for somebody to do right away is the detergent they use for their clothes, for their family, on their bed sheets, because we're breathing that in 24 hours a day, with the exception of when you're showering, you're either breathing in your clothes or you're breathing in your bed sheets. And every single conventional detergent that people use is highly toxic. So look at what you're using and switch over to a non-toxic source. I like a company called My Green Fills, and I get them on auto ship each month. It's 100% non-toxic. That right there would make a huge difference for somebody's health.
What's it called? My Green
Fills.
My Green Fills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's big things like that. It's the air we breathe, right? Is a big piece. The water that we bathe in the shower. A lot of those things. So one of the things that I did about 1.5 years ago is, like, somebody was telling, like, a good buddy of mine who is an entrepreneur, owns a bunch of, was a professional golfer. He actually got cancer. And it was like a melanoma. It was on his leg, right? So it's a skin cancer from allegedly the sun, right? And they're like, oh, well, you're always in the sun because you're always golfing. He's like, dude, I wear pants. I'm a professional golfer. And they said, hey, it doesn't matter. Like, here are your two options. We can either cut off your leg or you're going to die. And he's like, I don't like those options, right? So he started going to a more holistic doctor. And that doctor said, listen, man, a lot of what you're saying, Ben, is I can't cure you, but your body can cure you. And you need to take and eliminate all these interferences, all these toxins, all these things that are going on in your life. You need to get that out of your life. And so he went totally organic on the food that he ate. He put a water filtration system on his water main. I just did that. It's actually not that expensive. It was like $800 to do it, or to buy it. And then you got to pay a plumber a couple $100. So it was like $1,000, maybe $1,100 to have the whole thing installed. And so now I bathe, and it's lasted for 1.5 years. And I think we still have like half the time frame on it. But now I bathe and I brush my teeth in and wash my kids in totally filtered water, right? So that's a big thing, because you're inhaling the water vapors while you're showering. You're rubbing it on yourself. You're washing your face with it. You're brushing your teeth with it. That's something that there's a lot of things that people don't realize. A lot of bad stuff in the water from the water company that comes into your household. So having a water filter, I think, is a really big deal.
Yeah, let me make your point as well. You're right.
Yeah.
And I love that you did that, because they did studies on what's actually in the water, and there's heavy metals. There's traces of birth control pills, right? There's traces of medication in there. And when you take a shower, if you take a hot shower, what that does, it opens up your pores, and that water, all those chemicals are even absorbed further. Every day, if you're showering without a filter, you're getting that into your bloodstream. What goes on your skin gets absorbed into your bloodstream, and it creates havoc in the body. So something like you just said, $1,000 for 3 years of a water filter for your entire family, that is an important thing to incorporate with your home.
Yeah. And I mean, one, you can just drink the water out of the tap, so you don't have to go and buy a bunch of filtered water anymore and all that kind of stuff. So you actually save some money on it, and you feel better about yourself, and the water, it's just better. It tastes better and everything. But going back to my buddy, he incorporated that and stopped eating. There's something like 20 different types of pesticides on your fruit and your vegetables. And guess where that goes if you eat it? It goes into your body, right? It's like you're eating Raid. And so he only eats organic. And so my wife only shops organic now for all of our fruits and vegetables and meat and all that kind of stuff. And so we're eliminating a lot of that. And so he incorporated all these things. He stopped using like lotions, and he stopped using sunscreen, and just wore a shirt instead, did things like that. And dude, hand to God, I'll introduce you to him, and anybody who's listening to the show, hand to God, his cancer went away. His body cured it. He started fasting, and what you were talking about, like a lot of that interference, when your body has the ability to go and heal itself, it will. And his cancer went away. All he needed was a skin graft. He's on his leg. I see him hanging out, and we grab a drink once in a while. He comes to my mastermind events, and great dude, and made a significant impact. Really got me on this health kick about 1.5 years ago, and then I met you, last year also, and it just like kind of compounded. So it's been really, really impactful, man, for me and for my family too. So
that's an amazing story. And I hope that it inspires somebody listening right now. So because there's two type of people in this world. There are the 3%ers, which is your friend, which is you, which is me, who we know that there is a cause and an effect. And if something happens, we want to know what was the cause of it.
Yep.
Then there's the 97% who just live off of effect, and they treat symptoms and they blame everyone and everything for their circumstances. The 3%ers get diagnosed with something that's unexplainable and they heal themselves and they take responsibility. 97% are the ones who are scrambling and reaching for medication and surgeries, and they're looking at the effect and never really getting to the cause. One of my favorite quotes is from Albert Einstein. He said, "Intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them." So the 3%ers out there are geniuses, and I want to encourage anybody on here to become a genius, and that's what we're talking about here.
Love it, man. That's powerful stuff. Another one is like the air quality, right? What kind of air are you breathing in? I have a good partner of mine. I own several hundred apartment units with him. And he's from like New York, New Jersey area originally. And one of his buddies growing up lived in Manhattan and went for a run every single day. Never smoked, right? He went for a run every single day, had good cardio, good lungs. But you know where he ran? He ran down Broadway every single day in Manhattan. And your heart and your lungs are pumping at its highest capacity, but it's bringing in toxic air. And he's just inhaling car fumes the entire time while he's going for a run. You know what happened? The dude got cancer and he died in his mid 40s, late 40s because of it. Never smoked a day in his life, went for a run every single day, thought he was doing the right thing. But because of the air quality, he ended up dying of lung cancer in his 40s. It's insane. So you got to make sure you're running in the, like I go for a run in the woods all the time. I don't run on the streets anymore. I don't do anything like that. I only run in the metro parks, which is like the big park system around here in Cleveland. And having the right filtration system on your house, on your furnace, and that kind of stuff is probably a big impact too.
Yeah, and that's powerful. I see that a lot. I'm in Miami, and I see people running through the streets during traffic, and I'm thinking the same thing. They're breathing in all those fumes. If you can, definitely go to an isolated area. And what we're talking about here are just tips for you to incorporate so you could start removing these stressors. The way I look at it, as everybody's born with this bucket. This is your genetic bucket. And as you grow older and you have the choices you make, you're running with cars all around, with car fumes, you're breathing in, you're smoking a cigarette, you're eating high sugar foods, you're filling this bucket up. As your bucket continues to get full, symptoms start to occur. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping. Maybe you're 30 pounds overweight. Maybe you have skin rashes. You have fatigue. So this bucket is getting full. If you don't do anything about that bucket getting full, it continues to get full. And then what happens? It overflows. And that's when you go to the doctor and you are diagnosed with a disease that you are scrambling to take care of. So what we're talking about here are tips for your listeners to empty out the bucket so you could live a long, healthy life. I believe we were designed to live to at least 120 years old, disease-free, and high quality. And that's exactly what I am incorporating with myself, with Tim, and the work that I do. So I want everybody to understand that we were created for a long, healthy life. And just imagine the impact you could make living 120 years old. You could see your kids. You could see the legacy that you built, and you could see it work for generations. That's just an amazing thing that we have the capability of doing.
Wow. And one of the things you've told me in the past is everybody has a different size bucket. We don't know how big our bucket is. So, I mean, there's some people who get cancer in their 20s, right? And then end up.
And children too.
And kids, right? And so we don't know how big, and like me being a father of a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, like this is stuff that, the health stuff is important for me, right? But it's really more important for me to like implement it on my kids because I see this stuff. And I, in January, we took a little girl to, we got a suite for Disney on Ice. And we took this little girl who has cancer and has essentially less than a 1% chance of surviving another 12 months, right? And I'm not saying this is her parents' fault, but it's the environment's fault of, I don't know, what kind of food are we feeding our kids? What kind of, another one that we've been talking about over the past 30, 60 days is all the EMF waves, right? And I remember reading a study that some, I think, high school kids, college kids did, and they took not a petri dish, but like an entire tray of those chia seeds. And they put chia seeds in a tray and they watered it and put sunlight and soil on it for 30 days, 60 days. And they put it in its own area. And then in the room next to it, they did another tray of chia seeds, and they watered it and put soil on it, put sunlight on it. But they had 2 Wi-Fi routers next to it on all the time. And they came back 30, 60 days later, and the chia seeds that were watered and sunned and soiled and didn't have any sort of impact of EMF waves or Wi-Fi waves on that, those chia seeds were flourishing. And they went and looked at the other chia seeds that had the Wi-Fi routers on either side. Everything was dead. Crazy. And that those EMF waves, that comes from everything that we do. It comes from the computers we're on, the cell phones we're on, the Wi-Fi routers, the Bluetooth, earpieces, earbuds that everybody wears. Like, all that stuff is emitting EMF waves. What are the electromagnetic frequencies, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That are adversely affecting your cells. And what does that do? I don't know. Like I have satellite TV on my house. I'm sure that's probably not good. Although we can't see it, I'm sure it's not good. And all these waves are hitting us at all times. So I know we were talking a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about the EMF waves and things that we can do to kind of reduce those impacts.
I love that you brought that up. I didn't have it in my head before we started. And I thank you for bringing that up, because that actually is one of the most important things, because it's so ubiquitous. It is everywhere. EMFs are everywhere. 5G now is rolling out, and that 5G is bad news. It's bad news for our health. It's good news for technology. It's a double-edged sword. We love technology. There's things we can do to mitigate it. We're not going to eliminate it unless we move to the middle of the world where we're isolated. We don't want that, because I don't think that's great as well. So what are some things you can do? First of all, EMFs are electromagnetic frequencies. And I was just in Nashville a couple months ago with my coach, Dr. Pompa, and it was a Live It to Lead It seminar, and he had 6 or 7 of the top cancer doctors in the world. And you know what they all unanimously agreed upon? That EMFs are the biggest concern when it comes to cancer growth.
Wow.
Every single one of them said that EMFs are the biggest concern because of how it's everywhere. Yeah. So some simple things you can do. Number one, make sure you do not have your router in your bedroom or a room that you're spending most of your time in. Move it to a room that is move it to a room that's as far as possible in your house, in your apartment. Number two, when you're going to bed at night, turn off that router. You don't need Wi-Fi while you're sleeping if you're not using the internet. So if you can, turn that switch off. And then something else you can do, which might sound a little woo-woo to some people, but it is amazing, is just doing some grounding. What is that? Vitamin G is what I call it. You just take off your shoes and literally walk barefoot on Mother Nature, whether it is grass or even better, the sand in the ocean. What happens is the earth is struck by lightning thousands of times every second. So it's very electrically charged. So when you walk barefoot on planet Earth, it's actually pulling out these EMFs. It's reducing inflammation. It's like taking a handful of antioxidants. So 15 to 20 minutes per day walking barefoot with you and your family. You could be on a sales call. You could be on a call and doing some work while you're walking barefoot. Has profound effects. And get your headphones, make sure they're wired. I used to wear my AirPods all the time, and now I rarely do. Sometimes all the time I'm using my wired headphones. You see it right now. I'm using my old Apple headphones that are wired. So these are little things that you can do that'll just mitigate and reduce the drops in your bucket.
Yeah. I mean, my cell phone, I only talk on my cell phone if I'm on speakerphone now. Because I don't want it next to my head, right? Like, where those waves, they have to go through my head one way or another. Like, so I don't want that. So I do that. And then whenever I'm holding my phone, I turn it on. I turn it on the airplane mode, so that way it's not, emitting those frequencies.
Exactly. So always put your phone on airplane mode when it's in your pocket. I do the same thing. So Dave Asprey, who is the Bulletproof executive, he came up with Bulletproof Coffee. He would keep his cell phone in his right side hip pocket for years. And then he did a bone density scan, and it showed 10% less bone density right there where he had his freaking cell phone. It was eating away at his bones. So definitely do that. Never put your phone to your head. I see that everywhere I go. I'm sure you see it too. I see pregnant women doing it, and it just drives me crazy. What are they doing to the baby? I see people walking with fast food, holding their cell phone to their head, having a conversation. It's like smoking a cigarette.
I saw a woman going for a jog or going for a brisk walk, wearing all workout clothes, smoking a cigarette last week when I was driving into work.
Oh boy.
Crazy.
That's what I said. We're not dying, we're killing ourselves. So
Yeah.
those are the 97% of people that don't know what's going on. They're killing themselves slowly. And we're the 3%ers that are trying to make a difference.
And the difference is just making people aware of this stuff. So I don't think people are trying to kill themselves, right? Nobody wants to, diminish their lifestyle or diminish their quantity of life that they're going to have. But I think they're just not aware. Like, I don't think there's enough information out there, or they're not being told about, big pharma is bad news, right? And all these EMF frequencies and like what to do on that. And, that you should only eat organic food because of all the toxins and the pesticides and everything that's on all the produce and on your meat and on the things that your meat is eating, right? So the cows and the chickens and everything, what they're fed is going to be impacted into them and the meat that we eat from those animals. So it's like this compound effect, and you got to just be aware of it. But how do we get to a place where you still maintain, like one of the conversations we had last week on the coaching call that you did with me one-on-one was, how do I maintain quality of life of not going out and living in the middle of the ocean somewhere on a boat to not have EMF waves, right? So how do I maintain that? And you went over some of those things, but what about like, as far as dietary type stuff? Let's dive in a little bit of more dietary type stuff, because one of my conversations with you is like, I've eaten a lot of carbs in my life. I used to eat Chipotle like 4 or 5 days a week with a big ass burrito with extra rice and quesadilla on the side. But I worked out a lot, so it didn't show in me physically, but all the blood work and stuff that we did came back like, dude, you need to cut back on your carbs, right? So since we've been working together, I've scaled back the carbs and scaled back the sugars pretty significantly. And I like sweets too. Not a lot, but just kind of, I have a 4-year-old daughter. So how do I still maintain my, we like baking cookies at Christmas time. It's summertime right now. She likes to eat ice cream. I want to take her to ice cream and have father-daughter time with my daughter and have an ice cream cone together. So like you can still do some of that stuff, right? As long as majority of the time you're taking care of your health and you're being aware of what the other things are that you're consuming.
The goal is to develop metabolic flexibility, which is what I taught you. So what does that mean? We're made up of 70 trillion cells, and our cells could only choose 2 sources of fuel. Either we're burning sugar in the form of glucose, or we're burning fat and producing ketones. Most people, 90% plus, are sugar burners. You were, I was. And the problem with that is that burning sugar as your primary fuel source is a toxic fuel source. It's like that diesel truck going through the highway, producing all this smoke coming out of the exhaust. It's not good for the environment. It's very toxic fuel source. If you switch and teach your cells to burn fat for fuel, it's like Elon Musk Tesla, driving very clean through the highway, clean energy. And that's the goal, to switch over, to teach our cells to burn fat for fuel. And then we develop this metabolic flexibility. So when we go and we have ice cream with our kids, or we have an event coming up and we want to enjoy ourselves, we go for it and we enjoy ourselves, and then we go right back to burning fat. We want to be able to burn sugar and burn fat without a hiccup, but primarily use fat as the primary fuel source, but not the only fuel source. So that is where it's at. And how do you accomplish that? Well, first of all, you get rid of snacking, because if you want to age faster than anybody you know, eat every 2 to 3 hours, because that'll do it, because it's going to raise glucose and insulin. Every time you do that, you're aging yourself. So get rid of the snacking, have your breakfast, have your lunch, have your dinner, eat more healthy fats, eat less carbohydrates and more green leafy vegetables. And that's going to teach your body to burn fat for fuel and develop this metabolic flexibility. So I'm a fan of enjoying yourself as well. I think there's also, it's unhealthy to be orthorexic, to be obsessed over, oh, I can't have that, I'm not going to eat that, and not enjoying family time. It's important and it's healthy to enjoy family time, even if that includes ice cream. So I think there has to be a balance there, and metabolic flexibility is how you do that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. What are how does alcohol fit into this whole the conversation here? So if I'm a real estate guy and I hang out with a lot of real estate people who are very thirsty and they drink a lot. And what are, like, if people want to drink, we all know beer's full of a whole bunch of empty calories, but then there's studies that like a beer a day could be okay, or a glass of wine a day could be okay. And then whiskey, and depending on the type of of spirit or the type of liquor that you're drinking, like rum is refined from all sugars, right? So like, what are the best alcohols you can drink to maintain a good, healthy lifestyle?
Yeah. So if I were, and I gave you
Without
some,
giving up alcohol, right?
right. And you asked me this question when I first started coaching you. I would avoid wine and beer for sure, because those are going to cause the most harm, with the exception
Why
of,
is that?
because,
They're full
well,
of carbs?
yes. Also, beer is very estrogenic, and it increases our estrogen and lowers our testosterone for guys. So we don't want that. Beer is, I'm not a big fan of beer. Wine, a typical wine, a typical California wine has over 50 pesticides in it.
Mm.
So wine is loaded with pesticides, with the exception of something called dry farm wines. I think they're the best wine. So if you're going to have wine, you could get dry farm wines. They actually deliver auto ship to you. They don't have pesticides. They're actually really good.
It's an organic wine.
It's organic, sugar-free wine. It's actually keto wine if you want to still be in ketosis and have it. They're great. So that's the only exception for wine. So I would avoid all other wines and beer because of those two issues. And then if you're going to have alcohol, don't have the sugar mixed drinks. Have clear vodka, have some whiskey on the rocks, and that's going to be the best thing you can do. And you're still going to get the positive and feel good effects of the alcohol, and you're not going to do some of the other damage that the other stuff will do.
Yeah. And you said like a ginger mixer is okay too, right? Like ginger ale or ginger beer, maybe?
Yeah, I like a Moscow Mule because it has ginger in it, which is a good digestee. So a Moscow Mule is a good option as well.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't you explain what keto is? That's the big buzzword right in the health industry right now. A lot of people talk about keto. I like your approach to keto because it's not a diet. If you stay on keto and then you go off of keto, all of a sudden you know, blow up, right? You get add a bunch of weight and you get super unhealthy. But the way that you do it is kind of like an on and off and kind of a balance of coming in and out of ketosis, which I think is powerful. Why don't you talk a little bit about fasting and being in keto and the benefits of that for adults? And then my next question is going to be, how do we keep our kids healthy without needing them to fast for 16, 18 hours a day? Like, what does all that look like?
Yeah, keto is popular, and it's one of the top search terms on Dr. Google, but it's been around forever, since hundreds of thousands of years. And what it is, essentially, like I said, you could burn sugar, you could burn fat. Once you convert to teaching your cells to burn fat, your body needs to get a fuel source from somewhere. Your brain, which needs to run off a fuel source, needs to get something. So it actually starts breaking down fat in the form of something called triglycerides, and it produces ketones. Your liver produces ketones. That actually fuels your brain. Ketones do 3 times more efficiently than glucose. So if you want to have 3 times more brain power, which I'm sure every entrepreneur does, you want to be producing ketones because it's this magical effect. You feel like a rock star when you're in ketosis. Now, the issue is, okay, keto is great, but you should not stay in keto too long, because if you study the history of this world, there's not one ancient culture that ever stuck with one diet strict long term. They adapted to their environment. That's where the magic happens. So how I teach it is, yeah, you want to be in ketosis most of the time, but not all the time. That's where I call keto flexing. It's the name of my upcoming book, The Keto Flex Diet. It's going to teach your body to have carbohydrates from different times that you want to choose to do so and still go right back into ketosis. When you're producing ketones, it has profound effects on your longevity and your health, because it downregulates inflammation around your cells, so allows your hormones to communicate more efficiently. And it turns on this gene called the SIRT1 gene, which is a longevity gene. Research shows that if you turn on this gene, you live longer. So we all want that. So ketones are profound. So that's how I teach it. You want to use it as a primary fuel source. Now, how does that relate to your children? One of the biggest things you can do to help your health and your family's health, which is what Tim did. We did an audit on his kitchen, and I recommend everybody do this. Look for vegetable oil in your kitchen, in your pantry, in your kids' food. And if you have vegetable oil in it, remove that, get rid of it, and switch over to a healthier source, because vegetable oil is more toxic than sugar. Okay. And if you're giving your kids a product that has vegetable oil, you're doing a lot of damage to their health. I believe that vegetable oils are so damaging to our cells that if I had a choice to make between eating cooked vegetable oils every day or smoking a cigarette, I'd smoke the cigarette. It's doing less harm than the actual vegetable oil. So that's one of the best things you can do for your health, is to eliminate the vegetable oils.
Here's the thing, man. We did that, and almost everything had vegetable oil in it, right?
I know.
So how do we find things that don't have vegetable oil in it?
You got to look at the ingredients on the back. Don't fall for the front label. Newman's Organics looks great, and then you go to the back and it has canola oil. So here are the top 5 that you want to look for. And if you see this in your kids' food, if you see it in your food, I recommend getting rid of it. Canola oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, and sunflower oil. Those are the top 5. If you see any of those in your ingredients, get rid of it and replace it with avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, ghee, or butter. Those are much better alternatives. There's products out there like Primal Kitchen. You can find it in Whole Foods that have avocado oil. Primal Kitchen is a great product. They have little bars you could buy for your kids that have collagen protein in it. So that's what you want to do. It's the awareness, like you said, Tim. Most people don't understand how damaging vegetable oils are, but now that you understand that, you can make the decision to change it.
Yeah, and if you're looking for things made with avocado oil instead of vegetable oil, you can find them. They're out there. You can order it online. They have it at Whole Foods, all that kind of stuff. But you just need to be aware of it, right?
Thrivemarket.com is a great place for your listeners to order food on a monthly basis for your family as well, because they have good products that don't have vegetable oil. So I recommend thrivemarket.com, and I'm not affiliated with them yet.
Yeah. My wife buys a bunch of stuff from there. And
awesome.
What's the name of, we're busy entrepreneurs. How do we eat things and maybe eat packaged meals? Like one of the ones that we've been using is Fresh Meal Plan, right?
Yes.
That's the one that my family eats, and that's not cooked with any vegetable oils. It's shipped right to your door every week. All you got to do is throw it in the microwave for 1.5 to 2 minutes, and it's ready to go. You can do paleo, you can do keto, you can do whatever kind of meal plan or diet plan you want to be on. And so that's been pretty easy for us in a way that we don't have to, we're entrepreneurs, man. We have limitations on our time. We have limitations on our decision making, right? We get decision fatigue because we're making decisions every single day and big decisions. And one of my things is like, I don't want to have to think about what I'm having for dinner and making something and, reviewing all the different ingredients on the back. So once I find something once, I just stick to it, and that's all I eat, or that's all I order from. So Fresh Meal Plan's been one. Thrive Market's been another one. And one of the other things is there's I can't remember the website, but for all the different products that you're putting on your body, like your lotions and your shaving cream and your deodorant, that's a big one. There's a lot of aluminum and stuff in deodorant that causes issues with people's bodies, because that's where your glands are. What are they called?
Your lymphatic system.
Your lymphatic glands. And so all those different products, we went on, I think it's an app called Think Dirty, and it'll rate the different product from, I think, 0 to 10 on how toxic it is. And if it's from 0 to 3, I think like that's an okay category. And then obviously there's the yellow light category, and then the red light category. Like, don't do any of those things if it's above a 3, if it's 4 or above. And but it's a balancing act. It's like you want all zeros, but you also want the product to work, right? Like you want it to actually stop you from smelling or actually clean your clothes and those kinds of things. So I think as long as you're in that green range of 0 to 3, you're okay. And we've been just aware of that. And it takes a lot of work on the front end to put everything in place. But once you know the type of deodorant you want to be able to use, the type of dishwasher detergent you want to use, the type of laundry detergent you want to use, all that kind of stuff, then you already know it. You put it on autopilot on Amazon or on Thrive Market or any of those different things. Then you just order it every single month from there, and it delivers straight to your door. It's easier than going to the grocery store. So no, that's good stuff, man. All right. So we're winding down. We got another 10 minutes or so. I want to ask you, just kind of abbreviate or give me the Cliff Notes version of the stuff that we talked about, and give me like the top exercise hacks. Let's say you're limited on time and you can only do a couple of different exercises. What does that look like? A couple of the dietary type hacks. Like, what are a couple of those things that you would do? One of the things we didn't talk about was fasting. So I do want you to hit on that. And then just like a healthy living, the top hacks on that, probably like the EMF type stuff, and making sure you're putting good lotions on your body instead of toxic lotions on your body and things like that. So can you hit on like those 3 things? So exercise, dietary, and then just, general healthy
environmental.
Living. Yeah. Environmental.
Exercise for sure. So I'm an entrepreneur too, and I don't really like to spend a lot of time in the gym. And I used to own a CrossFit gym, and I saw so many people there for hours. And I was thinking, don't they have other things to do? Don't they have a business to run? I mean, I wouldn't want to do that myself. And so I could relate. I think it's important to not overdo it when it comes to working out. So some of the top things you can do are focus on compound movements, squats, push-ups or bench press, shoulder press, movements that are going to recruit multiple muscle fibers and multiple joints. I like those better than leg extension and curls. Those are okay. They're vanity movements, but I like those multi-joint movements. Deadlifts are great. And then my favorite is sprinting. There's actually a format called Headstrong Sprints, and I spoke about this at Chris Ruud's event where I met you in Destin last year. And this is developed from Dave Asprey. He has a book called Headstrong. And if you have an important day coming up and you want to crush a presentation, a podcast interview, a Facebook Live, you just want to be on top of your game, then perform these Headstrong Sprints. Here's how it works. You go into the gym or you do it outside. All you need is your body weight. You're going to sprint as fast as possible for 400 yards, which is about 1 minute and 40 seconds. It's all out effort like a tiger is chasing you. Then you're going to immediately lie down on your back for 90 seconds. So you can just grab your phone and put 90-second timer, and you're going to take deep breaths. You do that twice. What happens is when you're sprinting like that, your body's going to activate your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response. And it's thinking that you're running from a tiger, from a lion, and you're running for your life. Then when you lie down on the ground and you're breathing deeply for 90 seconds, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. And what that does, it floods your brain full of something called brain-derived neurotropic factor. All you need to know is that is like miracle grow for your brain. If you have that, it's brain fertilizer. You are more mentally clear. You are sharper. You are a creative genius. You're able to handle anything that comes your way that day. So this is a great little hack for you to do in the morning, Headstrong Sprints. And so that's exercise. Any questions on anything else on exercise, Tim?
No, I think that's good stuff. I mean, the thing with exercise, you don't have to go and spend 2 hours in the gym pushing weights every single day. Like a good 30 minutes of good exercise is plenty to live a very healthy lifestyle and be fit from a physical standpoint, right?
Yeah, totally. And what's more important than going to the gym for an hour, and then it's more important to be active throughout the day. If you're just sitting on your butt for 8 hours and then going to the gym for an hour, it's pointless. You want to make sure you're moving, you're standing up a lot. So yeah, you want to do that in 30 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week in terms of being in the gym is sufficient. You don't want to do more than that. So like Tim said, less is more when it comes to that. All right, let's move into diet. What can you do for nutrition? Definitely limit your carbohydrates, eat more fat and protein with your meals.
And healthy fat real quick.
Healthy fats are going to be those oils I mentioned earlier, and then also some pastured eggs, some organic eggs, wild caught fish. Always go wild over farmed. 100% grass-fed beef. You want to make sure it says the 100% because if it just says grass-fed, chances are it was not grass finished, and those cows had grass and then got finished on corn. So 100% grass-fed and grass finished. And you'll also nuts and seeds. Macadamia nuts are great. I like walnuts. And raw cheese is great. Some kefir is great. So these are all healthy fat. Avocados are also great. I love avocados. These are all great for you to have. Eat less of the processed carbs, less of the vegetable oils. And then eventually you could also do some fasting, some intermittent fasting. That essentially means you're just eating less often. It's not about eating less necessarily. It's about eating less often. So maybe you skip breakfast like Tim does now. You just have water or you have coffee or you have tea. And then you just go into lunch and your eating window is now from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. So outside of that, your body is healing and repairing. And then during the 7 hours you're eating, you're in an anabolic growth stage. So that's what we're designed to do. Our DNA is set up for these feast-famine cycles, feasting when you're eating and then fasting and not eating. If you can follow this cycle, your body's going to reward you for it. And fasting has profound impacts on health and longevity and fat loss and just a long list of things. And those are some simple things you can start doing immediately, and you'll notice a big difference with your energy levels and your overall health.
Yeah. I mean, I used to nap or be tired every single day, that 2 o'clock, right? 3 o'clock type of time frame. And since I've been fasting, I don't get tired at all. There's these hunger pangs that came in initially at like that 10, 11 o'clock range in the morning. And if you can push through that and get to like noon or 1, And then, I come home and I eat a pretty early dinner because I have young kids. So we're eating, in the 5:30, 6 o'clock range. And so really I have lunch at 12, 12:31. And then I eat dinner at like 5:30 or 6. So my eating window is only about 6 hours. So technically I'm fasting the rest of the time. And, when I'm fasting, one, my body's in, it's burning it's creating ketones, right? It's burning all the fats instead of burning sugars. And secondly, it just keeps me disciplined in not going to the refrigerator before bed and shoving a bunch of, bad food in my mouth, or eating a bunch of like sugary cereal or something in the morning. So it just keeps me like inside the lines on my diet. And and then I'm not as hungry either, because I always used to overeat. I'd eat my face off, then I feel sick. So now I crush a glass of water. I have my meal, and, a small half of a meal would fill me up today, as it did, it would take double that, 3 times that to get me there, 18 months ago. So it's been pretty impactful. And again, the energy levels have been much higher. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah. And the thing about eating before bed, it's one of the worst things you can do for your health. I mean, if you want to accelerate your aging, if you want to have brain fog and hunger in the morning, then eat right before bed. You want to give yourself at least 3 hours, because when you eat right before bed, you're giving yourself food energy, and then you're going to sleep and you're not burning any of that energy off. And what it does, it creates high amounts of something called reactive oxygen species, ROS. So it creates a whole bunch of inflammation. It prevents you from getting deep restorative sleep. It prevents you from burning fat. So you're going to wake up with brain fog. It's going to take you longer to get the day started. So one of the best things that you can start doing tonight, listeners, is to fast at least 3 hours before bed. Give yourself this 3 hours of digestion. The next morning, you're going to feel so much better as a result.
And then that naturally creates a 12-hour time frame. If you stop eating at 8 p.m. and you go to bed at 11, and you wake up the next morning at 6, 7 o'clock, but you don't eat until the 8 o'clock time frame, let's say, that still gives you 12 hours of fasting, which allows your body to do the regenerative stuff that it needs to do, right?
Yeah, 12 hours should be the bare minimum, and that's perfect. 8 to 8, boom. You're sleeping and you're not even thinking about food. So I think that's a great way to get started with intermittent fasting. And
how about you said exercising while you're in that ketosis phase of during your fast is super impactful too. Like that even compounds your health effects even more, right?
Yeah. So once you're doing keto and you're fat adapted, then you could do things like that. You could go and you could train in the fasted state, and you're going to actually get more benefits, because your body's going to ramp up human growth hormone, which is fat burning, muscle preserving, anti-aging. Your body does this because it thinks that you need to stay alive to find food. It thinks it's a stressor going on. So it has all these amazing functions that start to occur. It doesn't know that we're just working out in a gym just to be healthy. So yeah, utilize that. And I continue fasting 2 to 5 hours after the workout to get more of those beneficial hormones. So yeah, it has profound effects on your health when you work out in a fasted state, and you feel so good when you're crushing weights and not digesting food.
Awesome. And then as far as environmental, we talked a lot about those at the beginning. You're thinking the biggest environmental factors are going to be, reducing the Wi-Fi and EMFs as much as possible. And what else? Air quality, water quality.
Yeah, getting a shower filter on Amazon. You don't have to do what Tim did and pay $800. You could just go on Amazon, $25. It'll last you 3 to 4 months. Just keep changing them out. Turn off your Wi-Fi out now at night. Put your phone on airplane mode. There's also EMF protector shields you can put around your phone that you could just Google EMF protector shields. For your kids' iPads as well. That's going to be important because they're on their iPads. So just put those shields. A bunch. Yeah, exactly. So put those shields on your kids' iPads. And if you have silver fillings, come talk to me, because I could help you with that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Tell me a little bit about Keto Camp for anybody who might be interested in plugging into that.
Yeah. So Keto Camp is my company. I do one-on-one coaching like I'm doing with Tim. So anybody who wants to take their health to a level they've never been before, they want to learn about all this information that I've gathered over the last 10 years, and they want me to curate it for them and customize it for them. I do one-on-one coaching. So that's option number one. Option number two is also I do group coaching. So I have my Keto Camp Inner Circle. If you like more of that group dynamic, you could join my Keto Camp Inner Circle. And I'm putting a lot of time and energy into my YouTube channel. It's growing really rapidly. So if you go to youtube.com and put Keto Camp or youtube.com/Keto Camp, you can learn about it. And what it is I'm teaching you everything I've learned over the last 10 years, and I'm curating it for you. And I'm on a mission Tim, to educate 1 billion people on planet Earth while I'm here. And that's why I do what I do and why I'm so active on social media. So I want to help in any way possible. If somebody's going through a challenge, I want to help you. If you just want to upgrade your health, I want to help you. And that's pretty much what I do.
I love it, man. Well, you're making an impact on me, and hopefully this makes a big impact on a lot of other people too, with all the wealth of knowledge that you shared here. So, man, I appreciate you. How can people get a hold of you, Ben?
Yeah, you could find me on Instagram, the Ben Azadi. I'm very active on there. Also, YouTube is great, and I want to acknowledge Tim because this podcast is awesome. Tim's doing a lot of great things. I mean, legacy wealth. What me and Tim are talking about here, and what we discussed the last 45 minutes or so, we're talking about significance, not success. Significance is more important than success because you could have all the money in the world in your bank account, but if you don't have the health and the vitality to enjoy that money, what's the use of that? You could go on a monthly trip with your family, but you're hurting all the time. Your energies, you're complaining, and your family suffers because they don't get your greatest version of yourself. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about making some changes, and it might be a challenge at first, but you focus on your health and everything in your life improves because that person who is sick and who has $1 billion in their bank account they would swap their life with somebody who's broken healthy because the person who is healthy has many wishes. The person who is unhealthy has one wish, and that's just to get their health back. So that's the point of this conversation here. And I encourage you to take responsibility over your health because your family will benefit as a result.
I love it, man. You dropped a ton of insight, ton of knowledge bombs. Appreciate all the information that you've shared. And we'll put Ben's contact information in the show notes also, so you guys can reach out to him, connect with him. He's making a big impact on me and my family and our health, and is doing an awesome job. And obviously, you see he's got the whole package. He understands the mindset piece of it and the health piece of it and how it works with busy entrepreneurs and business owners all around the country. So appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. And guys, that's a wrap for another episode of the Legacy Wealth Show. Thank you so much for listening, and excited to talk to you guys again next week. Thank you.